Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another Expat. This is episode 84, recording live this Sunday, February 8th, 2026. As always, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're managing to do a better digital detox than I am, because the very little times I have, I spend mostly on my phone. But maybe it has to do that the weather is freezing cold, everything is slippery, the sun is not shining, the colors are absent. It's just February in Berlin. Now, I have seen that the ice situation is happening in all of Northern Europe. The rivers are freezing, people are walking on lakes. So I see it, It does have its beauty. Now, I want to start this episode by saying it will have very little structure, bear with me. But I cannot not address the comment from previous episode. I got one that said that my child will leave me at an elderly home when I am old because I talk about his dirty poop all the time. Well, first of all, if he's my son, he'll understand. I think he will find it amusing just as much as I do. And it's honest. This is life. You can't sugarcoat everything, and definitely you can't sugarcoat that smelly shit. But I thought about it, I felt bad for a small moment exposing him like that. Until the next day. The next poop was even worse than the one I described. So I take nothing back. It's part of the reality of parenting. There is a lot of talk about poop. It's just the way it goes. I've said it before. Babies are a black box. You don't know what's happening inside. You only know what you put in and what comes out. This is what you have to work with. So it's like reverse engineering. You try to understand how the pieces fit. Okay, too graphic. Moving on. As a second intro news, I want to start a new segment in this podcast, a new column or whatever you want to call it, which will be answering your questions. Now, to do that, you have a lot of different ways that you can reach me. From a comment on Spotify to a message on Instagram, but I have created now, inspired by another podcast, a Not Gonna Lie account. This is a service, NGL, Not Gonna Lie, and you can use it for getting anonymous questions. So I will be using that as well. I have a link for it. You don't need an account. You can just click on that link and ask me anything. If you choose to put recordings, I won't put your voice. But I'm very happy to answer any question you may have about me, about the world, about the universe. Bring it on. I will be sharing the link in the description. Now, one small detail about this. I downloaded the app. Not Gonna Lie, NGL is the name of the app. And it asked me for a username. I put yet another expat. Then it asked me for a photo. And I opened the photos in my phone. And I thought I'll just put the quickest random thing I see in front of me, which was a picture of a German vegan spread for bread. It's a spread made out of fake meat, an apple, and onion. And the reason I have that is because we're buying it in our house and I had to find it. So I took a screenshot of it. But I cannot write any German. And I took a screenshot of it so I can find it. Now, here's the interesting part and why I'm sharing this. Now, I set up the app and I go to see the inbox. And in there is an advertisement space because it's a free app. I'm not going to pay the pro version. There is a place where they put advertisements. And the advertisement is from that supermarket that I buy this spread from. And I have to say this was very impressive and very scary because nowhere else I have information about me using that supermarket. I have never seen ads from that supermarket. So just by me uploading a profile picture of a specific product, because it happened to be in my phone, I now get served the ads from this app. So it means they take their profile picture and they analyze it and they feed it into advertisement data, which is on one hand expected. They want to show relevant ads. I'm sure if I had read the terms and conditions, somewhere in there it could say that my profile picture might be used for understanding better my consumer profile and whatnot. But how mind-blowing is it that I put a screenshot of a bread spread as my profile picture and then the app showed me an advertisement from the supermarket that sells this spread. I'm not yet decided. Ethically, I am against personalized ads. I hate that they get to have your profile and they know what you want and they are able to serve it at the right time and all of this. So I never consent, whether it's cookies or websites. I always say no, only the necessary and all of that. On the other hand, given that you are seeing ads no matter what, I do think it would be helpful if I'm seeing ads for things I'm actually interested about. Because then the ads I get are for, I don't know, diet pills and general propaganda against immigrants and how to get a pension or how to get a health insurance. Like, they're just way too random. I don't know where you stand in this. Morally, I'm totally against having all of my info being used for specialized ads. On the other hand, I get annoyed by how irrelevant ads can be sometimes, and I just wish I got something a little bit more tailored to me. I think capitalism is pushing me and I'm almost giving in, getting these ads shoved down my throat. Speaking of shoving things down one's throat, let me talk a little bit about feeding a child. Just a little bit. I know I talked last time as well. But it's really not easy at 1 year old. They are exploring gravity. They're exploring how things work, how things fall down. And being on a high chair is just the perfect place to do that exploration, as my girlfriend keeps reminding me. But just to say, I was talking to my mother. There are 2 methods of doing feeding for toddlers. One is what I was taught, the old school, which is the spoon comes to you, gets shoved in your mouth. Every time they feed you, they also wipe your face. Nothing gets spilled. You don't make a mess. You are obedient. You are there to get fed, basically. The parents just try to make you open your mouth any way they can to shove that spoon. They make noises. And they, of course, congratulate you when you get a bite. They say bravo when you eat. So you can associate eating with people pleasing, which is such an amazing combination to carry with you down the path of life. And then we have the new parenting. It's called gentle parenting, but it's really not gentle. Not for my soul, not for our floor, not for anyone, I guess, besides the baby. Now, this is where you give a bunch of different things, something mashed together so it's liquidy, something haptic so it's crunchy. You give spoons, you give plates, and good luck. Everything comes flying all over the room. You need to keep your cool. You need to stay calm. You need to not scold, not yell, not stop it. You need to hang in there while the child learns textures and tastes and how to use a spoon. And it also learns gravity, how things fall on the ground while you're there trying not to blink. But it's literally like the food Olympics. Now, we have the Winter Olympics. Have you seen the ski jump? This is what happens to every piece of solid food that is in his hand. And sometimes the liquidy stuff as well. He just waves his hands around and the more gooey stuff gets also thrown in every single place. Now, I've said all these things before, but I want to add to it. Now I know. Now I understand why so many families have dogs. It makes the perfect sense. First of all, dog is, for a lot of people, baby practice. You're not ready for a baby yet. You're like, okay, let's just get a dog and see how it goes. Because a dog, let's be honest, you can neglect a dog. No one will know. The dog won't go and attack its classmates at school or start taking drugs, you know? It will just be miserable. So if you're bad at it, you can shush it under the carpet. But it is a good practice for responsibility, for having to care for someone else, for testing your patience, for realizing how destructive it can be if you decide to share a bed, whether it's a dog or a baby. Co-sleeping is impossible to stop. Much more easy to not start. But a dog is not only a great baby practice, but when you do have the actual baby, they act as a mop. They act as the perfect food collector. So the baby knows, A, if I throw something on the ground, it's not coming back to me. Anything I throw is done and out. Second of all, the dog doesn't just eat the food, it licks it clean. If you have a dog, you know they're gonna lick that floor until there is not even a molecule of food down there. If you have a dog, if I can keep your dog for a few days, let me know. But this is part of my little baby intro right now. Life with a baby. I tried to go outside with him. It's hardcore because, as you might know, in Berlin, they don't clean the sidewalks. It's a whole situation. We talked about it in the last episode. It's ongoing. People complain. It's the jurisdiction and the responsibilities, private versus public, blah, blah, blah. The point is, I have to push a baby stroller through the snow in order to get where I need to go. But we did go to a baby music class. Imagine 5 parents with 5 babies with a hippie teacher that has brought in some of these bowls that are made out of bronze or copper, and you hit them and they vibrate to a specific frequency. If you've been to any yoga classes, you probably know them. So she had one of these, and we were singing songs, and we were moving little pieces of fabric around, and we were saying the same song and touching our nose and touching our mouth. And let me tell you, first of all, it's pretty awkward for the parents because the kids barely understand what's happening. So it's literally 6 adults touching their nose and mouth, singing baby songs and doing pirouettes. So it's definitely an experience for the parents. Now the kids, sometimes they pay attention, they get involved, other times they zoom out. Other times they just see something random in the space and they want to go there, completely ignoring what is happening. But it was very fun, and it's amusing to look at babies looking at things. We cannot understand how it must be to experience everything for the first time. We need to travel all the way to an exotic place half a planet away to see a landscape we've never seen before, or have half of an experience we might not have imagined that exists. Well, being a baby, your mind is blown away so many times during the day. So I like looking at babies looking at things because they're constantly in awe. They seem like they're tripping, like they're on LSD or acid, and at the same time that they are very high, so they are amazed about what's happening, but they're very slow in showing it or having a reaction or comprehending it. So yeah, seeing these babies look at the musical instruments, listen to the sounds, and look at all the adults moving around, looking bizarre with shaking fabrics and whatnot. Yeah, that was a spectacle. But it's nice to hang out with other parents. It's nice to hang out with other people because you get so institutionalized. Is that the word? When you stay inside and that changes you with the baby. One thing I like about this baby reality is that when I meet new women that are moms, they immediately know I'm not a threat. I'm not flirting. I'm just saying stupid shit because I have fun and I like what it does to my brain and to other people's brain. When you make a good joke, it kind of tickles the brain a little bit in a weird direction, right? And that can at times be perceived as flirting. So I was always mindful when I meet new people to quickly drop in, oh, we are doing this. You know, when you drop the we, it means that you're taken. As a good Swedish friend was saying, you can observe the people who talk in we instead of I, and then you know that they are with someone. So I would often do the we talk, but now I show up with the baby. I'm like, they know my daily struggles are the same as theirs. The second time I went out was to go to a family center. This is how they call places you can go with your babies and socialize with other parents. I pushed through the snow. There was an error in Google Maps, so I had to push through the snow 20 minutes. I arrived there only for the family center to be closed. Still painful to talk about it. And then I pushed that stroller for 15 more minutes to go to a public canteen / library / community space that is not for babies, but it's open and it has a nice garden. And I thought, okay, let's go there and see. And I found 2 moms there with 2 babies, about a year old. And after a little while, I just grabbed my baby and went close. They were friends. They were already interacting, the 2 babies. But I was, when you make the commitment to go out of the house, you need to make it work. You cannot just try to go out and then stay out for like 20 minutes and go back. You've made the investment. So I thought, hey, I'll just go and introduce myself and get Leonidas, our son, I'll get Leonidas to interact with other babies because he's building his social skills and he's very good. So I got him in my arms. I started walking randomly, and when we went close to them, of course, he started pointing at the other kids, at the two babies. So I just sat down and I placed him there. At this age with babies, when you meet with dogs, they just meet, they smell, you hold them in a leash. When you have little kids that can walk and go around, they just go and say hi to other kids. When you are at the baby stage, you literally grab the baby and put it on the floor next to the other babies. It's like placing your bag of potatoes there and then see if they interact. It's a very passive introduction. But we did that. And I had snacks on me. I had kids' games. So then these two babies, and I'm very nice with babies. I smile a lot. I make big facial expressions. I acknowledge them. I say hi. So then these two babies started crawling towards me, plus my son. So in the end, I had three babies trying to climb on me, which was very fun. And that's when I told their mothers that I'm the baby meister now. So I'll just entertain all the babies. And then we could connect about how you split chores between the couple and how do you do co-sleeping and all of these things. And it's very intimate, to talk with these women about how they sleep with their husbands and their babies. But it takes so much of your headspace, how to arrange this or what type of school of thought to follow, that it's very useful to know how are other people doing it. That's the problem when you're having a baby. Everything is your own bubble. You don't often go out there. Yes, there is bibliography and maybe Instagram, but you do so many things in a way you think make good sense. But it's not that you have a lot of opportunities to check how do other people do it. So that was nice. It works like a social circle, but also like a group therapy group, because everyone says the things that are hard for them and the other people say, yes, I understand. I've been through that, or I'm going through something similar. And then you just bond with trauma. That's how it goes. But let's wrap it up, this intro. The snow is slowly melting. The complaints about salt are everywhere. The Berlin airport shut down. The metro shut down. They also did a strike on top because it's a good time. The airport scenes were crazy. Thousands of people were stranded there. Apparently what happens is they say it's a weird weather phenomenon. I'm not really sure if that's the case. I cannot understand how every other northern country and city are able to make all of these things work in terms of their infrastructure and how Berlin breaks apart. So I say this with a grain of salt that is illegal in Berlin, but with a grain of salt. They say there is a difficult weather phenomenon where it rains and the rain freezes already before coming down. So it's not snow, it's just freezing rain. And they say this freezing rain can go on top of cables and can very quickly accumulate, and it's dangerous to do anything with it because it's not snow and it's not rain, it's just ice that gets on top of things. So this is where they blame everything on icy rain. This is where the airport blames the closure and the public transport as well. But the images of thousands of people being stranded at the airport without having any information about what's going to happen to them made rounds around social media. I have to say the BER airport is one of the worst ones I've been. It looks nice, but it's very dysfunctional. The spaces don't work. There's nowhere to sit and wait the way they've put the gates and the security. It's all just a very expensive, dysfunctional setup. Like literally to go from Terminal 1 to Terminal 2, even though the buildings are right next to each other, they make you go outside. Like you literally go through the snow or through the winter or through the rain. But in any case, we make it through. People complained a lot about the airport situation, and I get it, especially about the fact that the staff was rude and didn't give any useful information, and there was a lot of apathy for the thousands of people stranded there. And there was a Reddit thread about it, or a lot of Reddit threads about it. And some people said, oh, you should know that in an airport there is this company that is responsible for the operations, and then they employ dozens of companies for this and that, and then there are the airline operators. And that comment was trying to somehow say that it's, I don't know, a complex setup as a response to people saying, hey, we were there for a day, no one told us what's going to happen, no one gave us water or food or information, no one was even nice to us while we had to sit on the suitcase conveyor belts. This is where people were sitting, because one of the biggest airports in Europe, the BER, has almost no seats to sit on. So yeah, here's the deal. Here's how the rest of the world thinks about this. We don't need to know the operational complexity. That's not our job. It's the same thing for an overly bureaucratic state. We don't need to know how things work in order to have some expectations looking into one of the largest airports in Europe, in the capital of the country with the strongest economy in the EU. So I don't want to sound tough. I come from Greece. Nothing is working there. If there is something working, they deliberately making not work so it doesn't mess up the statistics, the medium, to make sure we don't have outliers to the average level of nothing working. But I do think that sometimes you can just do better, and that it's not for your user, for your customer, for your citizen to know the operational complexity you need to overcome. Because whether you are an airport or whether you are the BSR or the state that needs to get rid of the snow on the streets, it's your job to figure out an effective way to do it. I don't need to be bombarded with the details trying to explain the result of incompetence, which is the thousands of people that had to go to the hospital because they were sleeping and hitting their heads. I don't need to know it. I have the right to have an expectation of the level of service I would expect, the level of preparation, the level of proactiveness, the level of reactiveness I would expect from the place I live and pay taxes, without having to have a master's in municipality administration or airport operations. In other news, let's jump a little bit to the world in case you might have missed that. You know, the UN, the United Nations, there is a good chance that before the end of 2026, maybe the UN gets dismantled. The main problems, besides the US going cowboy style in the entire planet, doing whatever they want without even pretending they adhere to any norms, rules, or ethics, is that no one is paying for the UN. The UN has a membership that the different countries are paying, with the US being the largest contributor. And why is that? Because the UN was basically created by the US. It was created to keep world peace, but it was also created as a way to do foreign affairs and doing PR and doing campaigns in other countries, usually with a humanitarian mantle, but it was a way to keep the finger on the pulse of the world and keep influencing and all of that. But the US is now kind of done with it. It doesn't need it. They have way too much power and it's just an inconvenience. So with the US being out, there is a $2 billion debt that the US hasn't paid for its UN membership. The membership from the previous year and the membership from this year, which is 700 to 800 million. And Trump has said he's not going to pay any of that. And some other countries are not paying. And basically the whole thing cannot function if it's self-funded, the UN. So it cannot really function. And they say that the funds will probably run out by summer. So how much does this mean in the reality as we live it today? We know ever when I was 18 and we had to write the national exams in Greece, in the topic of literature and essay writing, we knew that if there is a topic around the UN, you need to say that basically what they do is not enough. We had it hard-coded as a topic, but it is true because the UN has been criticized so many times because it cannot actively stop any country from breaking its laws. And the biggest example is US itself. US has actively broken the rules, promises, and commitments they have as a UN founding nation whenever it served them in different wars from Libya to Syria to Iraq and so forth and so forth. So yes, we all know that the UN is pretty incapable in terms of actioning or stopping countries, but it's still a very important humanitarian avenue for trying to have some peacemaking after a war has broken out, trying to have a neutral party enter a conflict, whether it is to help provide humanitarian aid or, to do some reporting. So, yes, the UN has a lot of problems, but at least it's something, right? So, in my opinion, if the UN is no more, it's just another example that right now there is no facade. Like the ethics, the morals are out of the window. It's not even pretending. Everything now in the world scene is about raw power and leverage. Who can hurt the other person the most? Who can last longer while being hurt? Who can squeeze the little guys out? So this is one piece of news coming from the world scene. I know I do a lot of US politics and there's so much going on, but I want to quickly mention 2 or 3 things just to keep you in the loop. In case you haven't seen it, TikTok was sold to an American guy. There was this whole thing with TikTok, if it's going to stay in the US or not. The US called it a weapon because if you control the algorithm, you can basically program people. I know I sound like a tinfoil hat, but you can do information or disinformation campaigns. And if you control what you can feed into people, then you can influence them quite a bit. I'm sure you all agree as users of social media. Next time you are with a friend, if you dare, just swap phones and just try scrolling, see how vastly different their bubble is to yours. But in any case, the news is that TikTok was sold to a billionaire MAGA guy, Larry Ellison. Not that I have anything with anyone's looks, but he does look like he came out of a Netflix animation series. But the news about that is that he's a hardcore Trump loyalist, and from the moment of buying TikTok, there is severe censoring already to what Americans see in their feed. With all the crazy things that happen in Minneapolis and ICE agents killing people there, that was one of the first keywords that got shadow banned. So if people search for Minneapolis in the live feeds, they wouldn't see anything. What people were making live feeds from Minneapolis. Other search terms that go against the current elite structure around Trump, from ICE to Epstein, are being blocked. Or some Americans say that it was more open during the Chinese control, but now it's under the US control. And the US has had no holding back in censoring what they don't like. Speaking of censoring, whether it is comedians or media outlets or whatnot, you know how Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post? The Washington Post is a 150-year-old American newspaper, one of the biggest news outlets that has existed. It was the one that broke the Watergate scandal, the Pentagon Papers, and Jeff Bezos bought it. At the time, he wanted it to become the pinnacle of journalism. But now, just a few years later, Jeff Bezos has decided to shut down the Washington Post. He laid off hundreds of people. He closed down the departments that were covering different geographies. And he literally fired reporters that were in war zones. Now, he says he's doing that because the newspaper was not making enough money. A guy worth $250 billion, he makes enough in a week to keep the Washington Post going for 5 years. Put that into perspective. The amount of money he makes in 1 week would have kept the company going on for 5 years. But he doesn't do it because of profit. It's very clear the Washington Post has been criticizing a lot of the current administration, and there has been a lot of efforts to slowly, step by step, silence that. And this is why rich people buy news outlets. They don't buy it to get the next Pulitzer in journaling. They buy it so they can control narratives, shape headlines, dismantle dissent, and serve that powers that be when that suits them. And basically, I think that it's a matter of time before this dismantling continues to a total shutdown. So how many news outlets are there that are still not afraid to bring facts? Well, according to the analysis from the New York Times, there are 38,000 references to Donald Trump across some of the 6,000 files released from Epstein. That's quite a statistic. But let's not go too deep into these waters. Last thing to report from that side of the world. Do you remember the whole anti-vaccination movement? Of course you do. We all do. Measles is a disease that was completely eradicated until the US started not liking vaccines. So a lot of people stopped vaccinating for measles. And here are the numbers from the US. 2023, they had 63 cases. 2024, they had 283 cases. 2025, 2,253 cases. And if we look at just January, 1 month in, there are already more than 600 cases. Just in January, have surpassed the total number they had in 2023 and 2024 combined. And it's just January. So, good luck catching measles. I'm very happy to not have a child in the US right now. Now entering the random bit, since you lasted for so long, I will give you some ideas or things you can do with your friends if you are above 30. You might have seen it online, but I saw it and I definitely think this should be a thing. So, activity number 1, admin night. Yes, this is something that people do. Everyone brings their laptops or whatever they have and they do all the boring tasks you've been avoiding. Get a friend, set up an admin night, and just clean it up. Cancel the subscriptions you're paying for no reason. Book your doctor appointments. Clear your inbox. Sort your bills. Look into your taxes. Open all your mails. It's way less painful when you're not doing it alone. So admin nights are real day happening amongst grown-up people. I love this one. I feel every night is an admin night, but anyways, let's pretend you can have it as a one-time event. 2 more. A PowerPoint night. I would love to be invited in one. Basically, you get 10 minutes. It's to present whatever you're currently obsessed with. It can be a hobby, a conspiracy theory, random Wikipedia deep dive. It doesn't matter what it is. Everyone gets 10 minutes and the projector and the game is on. And lastly, again, a favorite, an event where everyone explains what you actually do for work. And this is likely true. Most of your friends have no idea what you do for 40 hours a week. Explain your job like you're talking to a kid. And this is something that I would be so curious because for a lot of jobs, you don't know, even if someone, I don't know, they're driving a train, they're driving the metro. This is just one tiny bit of how it works. Like, where do they start their day? Do they just have their own keys to enter a train? Can they take a train anytime? How do train change tracks? Can you just hit the brakes? All sorts of questions and information that is missing even when you think you know a job. So this is the last idea. I know this has been a very long one. Sorry, the episodes are running longer than I think every time I have my topics. And I think it will be a tight one. And then every time it's a bit longer, but hopefully you don't mind hearing me ramble about things. Now, don't forget, if you want me to talk about something more specific, now is your chance to act. Send in your question to me from Instagram, Spotify, email, or the Not Gonna Lie link I'm putting in the description. And we can have a more structured place where I have an intro, main topics, and then answer your questions. So let's do it like that. I'm very curious. And with that, I wish you a lovely week. I thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, ciao!